Thank you. Very nice. Our next speaker is Jerry Smith. Jerry W. Smith is the elected sheriff coroner for Butte County. And he began his tenure with the county in 1977 when he became a reserve deputy. A year later, he was hired by Sheriff Larry Gillett to be a full-time deputy sheriff and has been proudly serving the citizens of Butte County ever since. Sheriff Smith has a diverse law enforcement background, having held nearly every assignment available to sworn personnel. His experience includes assignments in corrections, patrol, and investigations, where he was tasked with investigating narcotics violations and other complex and violent crimes. Sheriff Smith served as a tactical commander for the Sheriff's Special Weapons and Tactics Team for 8 years. He oversaw a number of high-profile incidents which were brought to a successful resolution. Sheriff Smith also served as the chief pilot for the Sheriff's Office and holds commercial ratings for both helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft. He's been instrumental in developing the Sheriff's Aviation Program, which is one of the best law enforcement aviation programs in Northern California. Sheriff Smith advanced through the ranks of deputy, sergeant, lieutenant, and captain, ultimately becoming the sheriff in January of 2010. Sheriff Smith holds a degree in social justice from Butte College. Sheriff Smith has extensive leadership training. He holds a supervisory, management, and executive certificates issued by the California Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, POST, and is a graduate of the POST Executive Development course. Would you please welcome Sheriff Smith?
How many range masters do we have in here? I know there's a couple of them. Dogs in the back there. Great. But we talk about gun control. In my mind, gun control is hanging on tight. Really tight. You'd be amazed when we talk about trained professionals. How many peace officers, either retired, current, and military police officers have been in the year? A couple of us, right? Where did you get your training, Chief?
Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office.
You bet. You bet. LA County Sheriff. Green and tan, right on. So, now, am I prejudiced? No, I'm not. I've got great friends in municipal policing agencies, and Chief Walters was one of those friends. But we have a diverse population that we help police in the county. You can well imagine. We have a culture that exists in the valley that's somewhat different than the culture that exists up here. As an example, when I pulled in a parking lot, I've never seen so many ladder racks and trailer hitches in one place. I mean, this is the kind of people that are attracted to this community here. And I love this community. I have to tell you, I live a short distance from here, and those of you that don't know where I live, you haven't done homework, because everybody perhaps knows where I live. But I shop up here, we buy our hardware up here, we buy our groceries up here. My wife and I really, truly do love the Paradise community. She's a retired deputy sheriff. I'm going to talk a little bit about her in a few minutes. We'll talk about gun control. She was a school resource officer here in the McGarry area for a number of years, and she retired from that position shortly after I took this job. It was a little bit of a conflict, so she decided to step down. But she tells a story about herself. Now, when we talk about range masters, every range master in here has seen an accidental discharge at one time or another. She happened to be in the Concal area, her and her partner, John Engel, and they were doing a search of a house. It was a domestic violence scenario. And the suspect, was supposed to be inside and armed. Why they went in there, we don't know. But they did. And she was carrying a double-action Sig Sauer 9mm. Those of you that don't know what that is, that was kind of the ladies' weapon of choice 15, 20 years ago. And she goes around, it's dark too, by the way. It's always dark. So as she enters the front room, she has an accidental discharge. She is so nervous that she has pulled the trigger on this double-action only Sig Sauer and shoots into the dark of the night, killed the couch. The suspect, meanwhile, is fleeing out the back door. Now he's really fleeing out the back door. He's later captured, later on that evening, as a matter of fact, and he said, that crazy woman was shooting at me, that crazy woman was shooting at me. Actually, she had an accident discharge at the couch. Another quick story, a friend of mine who's deceased now, he and Bill Hunter were killed up here in Inskip, Larry Estes. Larry Estes was up here prior to the town taking over. And I tell this story, number one, because it's funny, but more interestingly enough, you can be a trained professional and still have an accidental discharge from time to time. So they had a burglar, and one of the I think it's where Sinclair's is at now, I'm not actually sure. Filling station, the sheriff station. And Larry and his partner were doing a perimeter search. Turns out there was nobody there. But as Larry got on the back corner of the service station, the Coke machine that was on the back corner suddenly started. The compressor kicked up. Larry shot the Coke machine not once but twice. Twice. Geez, how that accident could have been. So years later, I happened to be, we were over here off Helena Drive. We had a chemical company over here that was being burglarized. How we knew it was being burglarized is the burglar tools were sitting outside and half the tin was pried off. So, intelligent criminal investigators we are, we assumed the place was being burglarized. It turns out it was. But we couldn't find a bad guy. So myself and a number of these other deputies, we were doing what we call perimeter search. We were going through the parking lot. They had a number of vehicles parked there. We searched and searched and searched, and you can well imagine we were on the edge. And I was carrying a shotgun, an 870 shotgun, which, by the way, is my weapon of choice. Sits right there, alongside the bed. It's a pump shotgun. It's not an automatic weapon. It's a pump shotgun. Well, I had one just like that, and we used to carry those what they call a patrol load. A patrol load meant that when you put the gun, you wrapped the gun back in the car, you made sure the chamber was empty, slid the slide up, and there's a manner in which you do that, and then you drop the trigger, the firing pin on an empty chamber. And you do that so that you don't have to manipulate, what do they call that, Scott? The release, the slide release. Yeah. And now when you get out of the car, and you don't have to manipulate that, you just rack it around in the chamber. Well, this young deputy sheriff, I'll tell you, when that gun goes off and the flame are roaring out, I mean, because I was actually holding it up. And when the flame roared off the end of that barrel in the deep of night, after we'd been looking for this suspect, I can tell you I was one scared kid. And I was a kid too, by the way. I started in the sheriff's office when I was 20 years old. I wasn't old enough to drink, but I was doing bar checks. If you imagine that. I don't know what Larry Gillick was thinking. Anyway, one scared kid. Well, right in front of me was a guy by the name of Lieutenant Don Peterson. Don, bless his heart, he had some issues from time to time. And he was not real popular with the sheriff at that time, with the undersheriff. Well, he was standing in front of me. Well, he jumped sideways. I could see him in the gun blast as he jumped sideways and up about 3 feet, and accused me of doing all kinds of things, like perhaps causing his demise. Not in those words, though, I have to tell you. So the following day, I go to work, and then Jerrry, who was a sergeant working for us at the time, he said, "You need to go see the undersheriff." And by the way, this is my undersheriff here, Corey Honey. We'll talk a little more about him. Corey's in charge. Policy comes from the desk of the sheriff. Operations comes from the office of the undersheriff. That includes all the discipline stuff, all the operational stuff. He has it all. He has the civil end of it, the admin end of it, the jail. He has the jail, and he has the jail. And he also has operations. We're talking here about the jail too. So I had to go see the undersheriff, and that was never a pleasant experience. The undersheriff was about Corey's size too. His name was Dick Stenberg. He was a big old strapping fellow. And he was one of our instructors in the academy, so I kind of knew Dick. So I walked into his office, and I know where this is going. And he said, "I understand you had an accidental discharge last night." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Well, it's amazing. As oftentimes as we hand these guns in and out of the vehicle, we had to, in those days you didn't have your own shotgun, you had to unload and load it. We literally wore out ammunition, loaded and unloaded shotguns to put them back in the racks so the next guy could get them." He said, "It's amazing that as often as we unload and load these guns, that we don't have more discharges than we do." I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Your gun was in a safe position when it went off." I said, "Yes, sir, it was." He said, "Well, thank God for that. You've had excellent training." And he said, and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be okay. He said, "But you had the opportunity to shoot that son of a gun and you screwed it up. Gave you 2 days on the beach for an accident. On the beach means you go home without pay." Now, and I like Don Peterson. His son is a highway patrol officer, works out of the Orville office, and we really enjoy Don and his son. So I tell a story about Don because he'd get a kick out of him. Today he would get a kick out of it. He wasn't real fond of me later on in that year. So you could have the best training in the world. And we shoot a lot. Scott, how much do we shoot a year? Do you have any idea? We shoot so much ammunition we can't get ammunition anymore. I mean, we shoot a lot. Our SWAT team shoots a lot. But you can be the best trained handgun operator or weapons operator and still, from time to time, have an accidental discharge. The undersheriff's going to talk about some tactics and some gun-safe stuff. I think Scott is as well here in a little bit, so I won't get a lot of detail about that. But I don't care how big you are, you can have an accident, and we want to be very, very careful about that. We do a lot of... How many of you have a concealed weapons permit in this room? Were you aware that all these guys had concealed weapons permits?
You get a lot of out, sure.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we do. I was flying as sheriff of Orange County from Oroville to Lake Tahoe, and his name was Brad Gates. Brad Gates was a great sheriff of Orange County. Big old strapping caliber, really nice guy. And we got to talking about gun permits, and he said in his county at that time there were very few gun permits. He told me the number, and I don't remember exactly, but it was less than 10. That's a large county, but less than 10 gun permits. One of his gun permits went to John Lane. John Lane had one of the few gun permits in Orange County. So we, in our county, at least it's our philosophy, my philosophy, is that if you're not otherwise prohibited, meaning that you're a felon, or that you've been diagnosed as being mentally ill, or you have some other restrictions that forbid you from having a concealed weapons, I encourage you to do that. I do. Now, there's a lot of sheriffs that don't particularly care for my position on that because, let's face it, the sheriff of Alameda County is not real hip on people packing guns. We had an issue come up with the Cal State Sheriffs a couple of years ago. They talked about long gun registration. Well, I jumped in. It was a conference call. I identified myself, and I said, that's not going to work in my county. That simply is not going to work. I'm not going to ask my constituents to register long guns that haven't been previously registered. I'm just not going to do that. Well, the group, we actually took a vote with the phone and said, no, we're not going to endorse that. The sheriff of Alameda, he pipes up again, he's on a conference call, and he said, long guns? What the heck's a long gun? I mean, this is open, right? Everything is a short gun. But he's a great guy, too. He's president of the Cal State Sheriff's Association. Matter of fact, Cal State Sheriff's Association, I'm proud to say, took a leadership role in defeating some gun legislation this year. 394, 374, one was on Amiano, and the other one was Steinberg, wasn't it? Is that right, James? You folks, you guys haven't met James yet, have you? James Gallagher back here in the back room. He's also, James, stand up. He's an attorney, by the way. I actually wrote, you can sit down now. I actually teamed with his brother-in-law, Paul. He's a really great guy. James, by the way, is running for the 3rd District Assembly, so he's a great guy. I like him a lot. So Cal State Sheriffs, when they started with this gun legislation this past year, we got together and said, you know what, first, you can well imagine the diversity of the state sheriffs. So you've got sheriffs of Orange County, San Diego County, San Francisco County actually has a sheriff, met him the other day, a really nice guy. Alameda County, there's a large metropolitan part of the state of California that, frankly, you've got counties in every one of those jurisdictions. So the sheriffs initially were divided on where they were going to go with anti-gun measures. And then I happened to be at the right time, at the right place. I was in Santa Cruz at a meeting where we had the majority of the sheriffs there. And they do the round table thing, and it came around to me, and I picked the microphone up, and I said, I cannot leave here if I don't bring this up again. My county is not going to stand by if I don't say something about gun control. We got every sheriff in that room by the end of that conversation to vote to oppose gun control in the state of California. 2 specific items: the magazine ban, the high-capacity magazine ban, and the assault rifle ban. And believe it or not, even the sheriff of San Francisco, the sheriff of San Francisco even voted to oppose gun legislation. So that was me. So the North State Sheriffs, we decided that that wasn't enough. California State Sheriff's Association were in opposition to those 2 bills. One of them never even made it a committee. But the assault weapons ban did, and it went to the governor's office, and we knew that it was going. So there was, I believe, 11 of us. And in a moment's notice, we ran down to Sacramento. We actually got an audience with June Clark, who is on the governor's staff, and she was assigned these particular bills. And we preached and preached and preached until they had to throw us out. Literally, they said, this room needed to be occupied 15 minutes ago. You guys got to go. What percentage of bills did the governor veto this year? Anybody have any idea? Less than 10%. He just is not one of those kind of guys that vetoes a lot of bills. But he did veto that piece of legislation that would have required you to register your long guns, and if you had an assault weapon that wasn't previously registered, you would have had to register that as well. And in addition to that, it would make it very difficult for you to transfer your guns to family members, and it would have reclassified a number of weapons that you probably have at home that are sporting firearms that were manufactured with the intent to be sporting firearms. Some of those also would have had been registered as assault rifles. And the proud says we got that one kicked out too. So we're out there, you know, we're walking and stuff. We've loaded up our lunch boxes, put our hard hats on, and we go to Sacramento on these kinds of issues any chance that we get the opportunity to. So we're very proud to do that for you as well. And you know what? I've got a gun safe, and it's full of guns. And well, not full. Yeah, I guess it is. So my wife and I are going to go to Reno to watch Paul Road, by the way, and so tonight we're going through a list of to-do lists. And of course, it's to take all the guns that are inside the house, make them safe, and put them in the gun safe. Now, my gun safe's full, so I have to have a list. Okay, that gun is in this drawer. That gun's in this drawer. Make sure that we get them all. And that's a job to get them all in here, but we do. I had a story I was going to tell you too. What's shit's the old? I'll think of it anyway. I know you're going to have some questions. I wanted to talk just briefly with you folks about how proud I am to be your sheriff. I really think it's an honorable job. And when we consider what it means to have and possess a firearm, and to have one personally on yourself, that's a huge, huge responsibility. We issue a lot of gun permits. I can't even tell you how many.
Last count was 3,200.
3,200 gun permits in this county. That's a lot of gun permits. My thought is if you have a weapon, you're qualified to use it, you're proficient with it, perhaps one day, God forbid you ever in that situation, that you'll have the security of knowing that you knew how to use it, you're proficient with it, and you had it with you in the event that you had to use it. I hope you never, ever, ever. You know, with that, I will turn it back over to Dan.